Hey there, I'm Hallie. Welcome to Ledger and Lace. Today we're going to talk about all the things going on in July because there's a lot going on. We have got Jane Austen July and Junk Journal July usually happens, and then also One Book July. So we'll start with Jane Austen July, which is hosted by some booktubers in the booktube world because there's a booktube world. So it's hosted by Katie at Books and Things and Marissa at Blatantly Bookish and Claudia at Spinster's Library. And those are all channels that I follow, and they're fabulous. Anyway, so they have a list of challenges for Jane Austen July, and they do something different every year. And so this is what's going on. I printed it off. Number one is read one of Jane Austen's main 6 novels, and they're going to host a read-along for Northanger Abbey, which I've never read, so we're going to do that. And then number 2 is to read something by Jane Austen that is not one of her main 6 novels, so I'm going to do her letters. I also might do Lady Susan. Number 3, read a nonfiction work about Jane Austen or her time. And I have a book called What Charles Dickens and Jane Austen Knew, I think. But I mean, I have a few nonfiction because that's my jam. It's nonfiction. So I've got several books that would fit into that genre. Number 4 is read a retelling of a Jane Austen book or a work of historical fiction set in Jane Austen's time. So there's a couple that I've already read that I can totally recommend, and maybe I'll do a review of these. But one is Lady Ludmilla's Accidental Letter, which is set in the Regency period, and that's by Sofi LaPorte. And then the Ill-Mannered Ladies, what was it called? I'll have a link, but that was fabulous too, also set in the Regency period. Okay, so but I'm not sure what I'm going to read because I already read those. Got to read something in July. So number 5 is a book by a contemporary of Jane Austen, published between 1775 and 1817. So I have a few, a handful. So I could read something by Maria Edgeworth, although she probably pronounced her name Mariah, right? Back in the day. Something by Fanny Burney or Mary Russell Milford. But this is what I also have. Let me show you. Wait a minute. In my Jane Austen desk, I have this. Look at that. Cowper poems. Although Claudia said, she was so funny. She says, poetry exists. But look how beautiful. Look at the gilding on that. It's just so beautiful. This was Marianne Dashwood's. That was her thing, was Cowper. So I'll probably, I don't know if I'll read the whole thing, but maybe a few. Okay, number 6, watch a direct screen adaptation of a Jane Austen book. So I was thinking I might slag through the 1988 version of Pride and Prejudice, but every time I watch that, I think, ugh. And then I just have to watch the BBC 1995 again. So I don't know why I said that like a Valley girl. But anyway, because it's 1988, so I'll have to watch it now. Number 7. Watch a modern screen retelling of a Jane Austen book. So I thought I might do, and actually this probably could work for number 6 as well, but I thought I would suffer through the Netflix version of Persuasion, and maybe even do a review of that because, well, we'll see. I don't know if I'd have anything to add to the conversation though, and it got pretty well roasted. especially Claudia. I mean, well, they all did a great job of reviewing that movie. Okay, so that's the Jane Austen. Those are the challenges for Jane Austen July. And then we have Junk Journal July. Although I haven't heard anything recently about that, so I don't know if that's going to go on or not. But, and I'm not sure if there's a challenge. I don't, maybe it's tags or something. I don't know. But anyway, so this was my Pride and Prejudice junk journal that I made. It houses my gratitude journal. It's a traveler's notebook because it's on elastics, but it's also solid Booksmith tome from Nick the Booksmith, and it also, even though it's a traveler's notebook, it's a hollow bat spine. So I'll have a link down below for anyone who wants to do that. And then I did a digi-kit of one of my Booksmith tomes, and then printed this out. So this is another gratitude journal. This is 2017. And I think I had a flip through this. I can't remember. Anyway, so those are my junk journals. And so junk journalers love Jane Austen, of course. And well, we know how junk journalists defile books. So they defile Jane Austen books, and they print out a bunch of Regency pictures of fashion plates and pretty much call it a day. That's it. I don't know that many people have actually read Jane Austen. That is not the point. And here's my confession. When I did this, and I'm trying to remember, why did I make this? I think it was for Nick the Booksmith's Classics challenge, and I wanted to do the peacock, so that's why I did this. I can put a link in the description below of a flip through of that. But anyway, when I did this journal, and this was, I guess, like 5 years ago, I had not read any Jane Austen. And I don't even think I'd read, that's why I say junk journalers love the Regency pictures and whatever else. But I was one of those people who was like, oh yeah, Jane Austen with the pretty dresses, and the empire waist. So I really had to ease into Jane Austen, and I'm going to do a follow-up video for if you've never read Jane Austen. And I was late to the party with Jane Austen, and I just couldn't get into her. And there was I read a passage as Magnolia May from Jane Austen, like, just like, she has this long run-on sentence that takes up a whole paragraph, and it's like, what is she talking about? But that's really how I felt. And but now I love her. And when I first read Pride and Prejudice, I finished it, and I turned around and I started back at chapter 1 because it was so fantastic, and I finished it again, and I turned back around and I read it again. It was that good. So once you get into it, it's like, oh my gosh, this is genius, and she's hilarious. So I'll do another video about how to, if you've never dipped your toes into the Jane Austen pool, I'll help you ease into it, because there's a good strategy for being able to get into it. So, okay, now, so that's Jane Austen July, that's Junk Journal July, and then we have One Book July, which is more in the planner world, and that's hosted by Miss Vicky B. and Romany and Carrie Harling, and they have a different theme every year. But the first year was all like, you know, because in the planner world, it's like some people have like 20 journals and planners, and this is my health planner, and this is my fitness, and this is my whatever. Anyway, so so they said, let's simplify just for the month of July, and let's do one book and one pen, and we'll call it One Book July, and that's what they did. So that was the rule, was one book and one pen. And then as they've gone along, that was the challenge. As they've gone along, they've done a different theme every July. So then there was one year where they said it's go big or go home, and it's like, well, okay, what does that mean? And they were like, it means whatever you want it to mean. Okay. And then there was the next year was like, there are no rules. The only rule is there's no rules. And it's like, well, that's kind of violating the original intention of One Book July, but okay. Anyway, so I think the great thing about One Book July is it's a challenge. It's an opportunity to try something new, and for me, it helped me really define what I needed in a planner and the functionality of a planner system. So yeah, and the great thing about One Book July, and this is where Traveler's Notebooks come in, is because you have elastics, you can do like, so this looks like a book, but these are on I have a bunch of different elastics, so you can pull the inserts out. See? So that's what makes a traveler's notebook a traveler's notebook. Junk journal people, it is not a size, okay? And one signature does not a traveler's notebook make. Of course, it's a size now because of junk journalers, but I'm just saying. So, which I include myself in that. So anyway, so that's the great thing about a traveler's notebook is, especially for One Book July, then you could have a traveler's notebook, and you could have an insert as your calendar. You could have one for your to-do list. You could have one as a planner. You could have a weekly. You could have a daily. You could have a journal. You could have your notes insert. You could have a bunch of different inserts. And then, yeah, so that's what that is. And then what else? Yeah, I think that's it. You know what? I'm gonna I'm gonna link my favorite Traveler's Notebook review, because you know, Traveler's Notebooks, they started off with Midori Traveler's Notebooks, a Japanese company. It's a single piece of leather with elastics. It's a very simple system. And there's a review that Stuff and Things Guy did that's very funny, because it's from a male perspective, and it's yeah, it's pretty funny. Anyway, and then I can put some early, I mean, that's kind of how I started into my YouTube, you know, journey, was planner stuff. So yeah. Anyway, okay, so the next video I'm going to do is, if you're Jane Austen curious, come on back and I will help you through getting into the rhythm and the language of Jane Austen, because even though she's speaking English, it's like 200-year-old English. So it really is kind of like learning a new language, and I have a whole strategy to help you do that. So, okay, I'll have links to everything in the description box below, to Katie and Claudia and Marissa, and the challenge list that you can do if you want to play along. And I'm thinking I might do another Jane Austen journal. I don't know, we'll see. But yeah, I think lots of Jane Austen stuff for July, interwoven with, you know, junk journals and planners, and oh my. All right, see you in the next video.